It's 2024, and the question is being begged, what is a woman? Yes, society has gotten so bored with every other problem that now we've created more. Well, at one of the only all women's colleges, and I believe the last all women's Catholic college in the nation of America, they were threatening to put biological men or allow biological men to attend this college. But two young women stood up against this for real women. They're going to join me today on Speechless. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Speechless. I'm your host, Phares, 23-year-old conservative activist and host of Speechless, not only on the radio, but right here on all these different streaming platforms. So wherever you are watching from, do not forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, share it with your friends, and make sure you ring that notification bell, hit it to all, because ScrewTube right now is making it so that less and less people are seeing my content. And so make sure you share it and you subscribe and you ring that notification bell so that you do not miss a minute like YouTube doesn't want you to. So we're going to get right on into it. I'm going to bring in my guests today, Claire and Macy, the activists, as mentioned yesterday on my show, and just right before I started, that saved St. Mary's College, Notre Dame, or right by Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana, from allowing biological men. Claire, Macy, how are you guys doing today?
Doing well. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Of course. And so I know you guys have been on quite the national media tour in the last several months, talking with so many about your story and the significance of it. But I'd love if you could, just like you did with everybody else, kind of talk about what the school started to do to allow biological men to attend, how you got word of it, and then what ultimately ended up happening.
Yeah, so I'll start with that. I was actually working in the admissions office when I overheard the policy. Basically, there was talk that, hey, starting in fall of 2024 at our women's college, we're going to let people who constantly live and identify as women into the school.
Yeah.
Whatever that means, I don't know. So obviously, I was pretty upset because I felt like that was such a betrayal of not only all of, us real women, but of the school's mission as a Catholic institution. So I went to Claire. I immediately knew that this is something we couldn't just let slide past, so easily as they intended, because they were hiding it. They were going to plan on continuing to hide it. And that was obviously, apart from the side that they were going to betray all women and admit men into the school who think that they're women, that was probably the second worst part of the whole, story. So I went to Claire. We started spreading the story. And, here we are several months later. I mean, it's been, all over national news. We've gotten the attention of Wall Street Journal, Fox News, Newsmax, Independent Women's Forum. So it was a pretty scary, start, because I, didn't know exactly, how many people would agree with me. The fact that I thought that this was insanity. But luckily, I knew that Claire was right there by my side. So, I mean, Claire, if you have anything to add as to how that got started, go for it.
Yeah, that pretty much covered the whole thing in a gist.
Mm-hmm. So when it came to fighting against this, what did that take, and how long did that take? And you guys also utilized Turning Point USA to help with that too, right?
Yeah. So Macy and I are actually president and vice president of the Turning Point USA chapter on campus. So that was definitely one of our main outlets to publicizing this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we currently have a Turning Point chapter unrecognized on campus, so the school doesn't officially recognize as us or sponsors us as a chapter, which was a whole separate issue last year that I had to deal with. But we've been definitely a controversial figure on campus because obviously Turning Point has strong values that the woke agenda does not believe with. So St. Mary's right off the bat hates Turning Point. So we actually use that social media in order to kind of publish this whole thing and say, we really only put the facts on there. We said, this is what the admission policy says, and here's what they're trying to do. And obviously, as you can imagine, the reactions throughout the students, parents, alumni, etc., everybody was very, very mixed. But I would say for the most part, the majority were extremely upset about this and enraged. And from there, we kind of started submitting articles and newsletters to different media outlets, trying to get our story out there, because we know that, these corrupt schools like that aren't going to be changing their woke agendas unless they're placed under this pressure, which is exactly what happened. And once we got one decent media site out there, a bunch of the other ones kind of caught onto the story because it was such a big issue.
Interesting. And so an all-out media blitz is how you were able and shedding light on the situation. And so that's interesting, because what that really says is that you played on the idea of a popular opinion. It's relatively popular, and even Pew Research polls show this, that most do not believe you can genuinely change your gender. Along with that, most believe that there should be designated women's spaces. There should be designated women's sports, genuine, real women spaces. And so why is it that to you guys, that a college, let alone a Catholic college, would allow for this kind of gender insanity to infect its halls?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, just like the rest of the left does, they did it under the terms of love and inclusivity, which I mean, those of us with half a brain know that it's not love to affirm delusion, and it's rather exclusive to give these spots and these opportunities to men over women at a women's college. I mean, Riley Gaines herself said whenever she came to visit us that St. Mary's was meant to be an exclusive institution as a women's college.
Mhm.
But sadly, this is part of just the corrupt, woke administration of the school. And this is, farther than just St. Mary's. We've seen this with Harvard, seen this with MIT. So many academic institutions, they're led by these extremely woke, extremely, liberal-minded, administrators. Katie Conboy is our president. She calls herself a feminist scholar, but she doesn't even know what a woman is. So they think that there are these heroes in society, giving, these DEI kind of based opportunities to, these minorities. And they think that they're really getting on, they're really above humanity in their terms of their mission of love and inclusivity. But what they don't realize is the repercussions, which is exactly what we've been trying so hard to advocate for, is the fact that they didn't think it through. I mean, they had zero idea how they're going to implement it. Whenever we asked them, okay, where would they room? Where would they, where would they shower? They couldn't answer a single question. So they never think past just their initial, hope for love and inclusivity, whatever that means. And once we actually start, letting them know that, hey, you guys have no idea what you're going to do after, then I think that's what led to the reversal. Not only that, but of course, we threatened lawsuits and they lost, millions of dollars in donor money. But, we gotta start making these woke institutions realize that they are their mission of love and inclusivity. It can't go far because they have zero plans of how to actually properly implement these missions of love and inclusivity.
And so building off that, so you say love and inclusivity. I mean, that's what the left always preaches. Do you genuinely believe that allowing biological men who are delusional and believe that they are women to attend an all women's college, do you think that's genuinely loving and genuinely inclusive? Maybe definitively inclusive, but affirming that level of delusion. Do you think that's loving?
No, it obviously is not. And I don't think we mentioned, Macy and I did have a meeting with the president of the college and the vice president of the college. And we brought up how, the reasons why we disagreed with this, not only on a Catholic viewpoint, but just for common sense. I mean, this makes absolute no sense. And we tried to explain to them, well, can you tell us where you're going to have these men go live or go to the bathroom, or what's the deal with sports? They had no idea how they were going to answer these questions, but they really truly believed that everything that they were doing is filled with love and inclusivity, when in reality they are affirming delusion. And this is just going to keep going on if we don't fight back against this, as we have seen in St. Mary's continues to go down the rabbit hole of woke ideology. And I'm just really scared about what direction it's headed in.
What could you see if this was not overturned? What were obviously you cannot tell the future or the alternate future, but in your mind, had this been allowed to stand, what do you think would have happened? What could have happened?
To me, I think first thing I think about is I think about how everyone hates Harvard now. I feel like that's, the level
Yeah.
of St. Mary's would reach. So with the possibility of the policy, they already lost so much donor money. I mean, it has to be millions at this point. They've lost current enrollment, future enrollment. So St. Mary's definitely would reach its demise, especially as a Catholic institution. Being able to have, you can't be a Catholic women's college and have this policy at the same time. So something would have to go, and it'd probably end up being the Catholic title. Because luckily our bishop in our local diocese, he's really awesome. He has a great backbone.
Yeah.
He would definitely not let that continue. So it ended up being stripped of the Catholic name, which would be detrimental to the tri-campus area, which, I mean, for those who don't know, we're St. Mary's, University of Notre Dame, and then Holy Cross College. So that would be detrimental. So unfortunately, I mean, if they continued and if they still hope to continue, like they do, say that they're hoping to further implement this policy, it will reach its demise, and no one wants to see that. Claire and I don't want to see that. As much as we're advocating against the policy, we're not advocating against St. Mary's. We love St. Mary's. It's an amazing school with amazing foundations, and I guess we're just fighting to preserve everything that makes it so amazing. But I mean, as long as we keep, these woke institutions unchecked, they're going to reach their demise, just like we're watching real time with Harvard, MIT. I mean, luckily, I feel like America is waking up, and I hope that, we can all work to contribute to that, that revival of the foundations that make our nation so great, because we've been losing them. But, I guess we're just kind of adding to the mission to hope to revive everything that makes America sane, or everything that did make America sane.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I wanted to talk briefly about the Catholic portion of this too, because obviously we ourselves are just under the basic biological assumption, well, and knowledge, because it's a fact that men cannot become women, women cannot become men. You are what you're born as. But even in pretty much every Christian denomination, but especially Catholicism, that's a fundamental truth too. And I don't know how often you guys watch the show, but if I'm looking down, it's because my laptop's right there, and so I might be looking at you actually if I am looking down. But I want to share this clip real quick. I talked about it a bit on my show just a little over a week ago, in which the Pope actually talked about gender ideology. And so I want to get your guys' thoughts on this clip here. I believe this is in English, this clip is, but take a look and a listen.
Pope Francis hosted the participants of the international conference, Man, Woman, Image of God, for an anthropology of vocations. The conference brought philosophers, theologians, and teachers together to reflect on the very nature of man and woman and their mission in the church.
È molto importante che ci sia questo incontro tra uomini e donne, perché oggi il pericolo più brutto è l'ideologia del gender, che annulla le differenze. E cancellare le differenze cancella l'umanità.
As an example, the Pope recommended reading the dystopian novel, Lord of the World. It talks about the problems that arise when differences are erased from the world.
So he literally discusses gender ideology and the erasure of gender as one of the ugliest threats. How does a Catholic university, a Catholic college, justify the affirmation of this? I mean, there's got to be something. How do they? Because even your bishop stood up against this. What was the Catholic backlash? What was like? Where was this? How did anybody support this at a university, at a college that claims to have any type of religious backbone?
As we've seen in the past, obviously the Pope has had some hot takes within the Catholic Church that have been misinterpreted. But this is something that I was very, very happy to see. Especially with this whole transgender issue. The Bible has been extremely modernized, and this is not an issue that should be up for debate. The Bible says what the Bible says, and it should not be interpreted into your truth and my truth and their truth. There's only one truth. And unfortunately, Katie Comboy, the president of the college, has no grasp on reality and has no idea that you can't just interpret the Bible the way that you see best fit. And I think that the way she interprets it is modernizing it so that it's inclusive and accepting towards all students. And even within the bishop's letter that he sent out in opposition to the new trans policy, he states that the Bible cannot be misinterpreted. It clearly states that God created man and God created woman. And if anything, if you really truly care about these individuals, you would be getting these people help, because obviously they have gender dysphoria. This isn't something that should be normalized, because again, you're affirming their delusion. And if anything, that is quite exactly the opposite of love.
Absolutely. And so did the president even try to give any type of a biblical argument as to why this should be allowed?
I mean, as for specific reference, I can't think off the top of my head. I know that, of course, she tried to say that, we're taught, and her, along with everyone else who agreed with the original policy, they try to say that, like, oh, God doesn't judge, like, God accepts everyone, which may be true, but again, we're at a women's college, so this is meant to be exclusive. So I mean, the way that she phrased all of her statements in support of the policy, especially whenever it was reversed, they were really weak. It was a weak apology when it was reversed. She said that it was a mission of course, love and inclusivity. The two words are thrown out all the time. She made fun of us, more traditional Catholics or conservatives,
Oh my God, yeah.
saying that they just don't support our mission of love and inclusivity. Which makes me really question her devotion to, again, of course, not only women, but also to the faith. Because anyone with half a brain who is religious, they know that there's like these very strict foundations that were taught. And again, I mean, like Claire said, I mean, the Bible is not up for your interpretation. I mean, there's not multiple truths. There's only the truth, and it is taught in the Bible. So you would think, or you would hope that, the leader of a Catholic institution would uphold very basic ideologies, and the fact that us students are doing better than this so-called professional is absolutely insane.
Absolutely.
Sorry, can I hop onto this question as well?
Absolutely, yeah, go for it.
She also sent out a letter to the school before she reversed the policy, and within the letter, all of her letters are extremely biased, by the way, and she claimed to be, I have the quote here, she said the school claims to be deeply committed to St. Mary's College as a Catholic women's college, and stated that this title must never change. We must never change our ongoing commitment to work with inclusion and equity, including the work we've done with the LGBTQ plus Center, SAGE, which is Sexuality and Gender Equity Club, as well as Pride at St. Mary's College. And then she continued on later and said, today I want to express my emphatic support for all members of our queer, non-binary, and trans communities. So within this letter, she was expressing that these people of these LGBTQ plus communities on campus had been experiencing harassment and discrimination, when in reality, the women that were standing up in opposition to the policy to stand up for the women on campus, the biological real women, were the ones being harassed by members of this community. So I was like, if you're going to stand up and defend one side, you better be doing it for both sides, because those were not the girls getting harassed, at least from the girls within our group. We were doing no harassing. We were defending real women.
So tell me about that harassment. So you had, as I usually say, like the Legibutica, the Alphabet Mafia, the snow cone color hair MFers. How were they harassing you? Like, tell me about how that happened. And especially so at an all girls Catholic university, first off, Catholic, and having that, I mean, Leviticus, if you read the book of Leviticus, it'll tell you exactly how how gays are seen as in the Bible and by God. But how was that harassment? How did that come in the form of?
Yeah, so obviously, I mean, we've kind of gained national media attention over the policy, but a lot of people don't really know what it's been like on campus. And I can say that on campus, it's been horrendous. We've been experiencing censorship and harassment, not only from students, but also from faculty and the administration themselves. So, of course, Claire and I, we're public enemy number 1 and 2. I mean, everyone hates us, death threats, eye rolling, name calling, all that, everywhere we go, which, I mean, to us, it doesn't, mean a lot, because we know that once we start getting all those names, that like we're doing something right, because that's all that they have. That's all they can do. That's the only rebuttal that they have against us in our argument. But unfortunately, it's like escalated to the fact where like other girls who aren't as, stubborn as Claire and I, like they've been harassed to the point of tears. I mean, one girl got bullied again to the point of tears outside of mass, actually, and the school did nothing for her. We had girls getting really inappropriate names written on their doors, and it's just every single person on our side who's been against the policy has been harassed. And unfortunately, that comes with also a point where a lot of our girls have felt like they're censored because we've been conditioned at the school through emails like that and through the treatment from other students that more conservative thought is not allowed and it's not okay. So I mean, that's why I bought this sweatshirt. It's why I like wearing this, because I mean, it's the amount of censorship and harassment we've had is absolutely insane. Like I said, not just from students but through faculty, and we've had faculty emails sent out in support of the policy, and most importantly against those of us who oppose it. So the treatment on campus has been insane. I mean, it's so political in a way for no reason. I mean, not everything has to be political. Katie Conboy made it political by doing everything that she's done, but on campus, it's been insane. I mean, that's something Claire and I are working to fight against, not only at St. Mary's but also all college campuses everywhere, because we know that liberals love to hate all conservatives. But I mean, that doesn't mean anything. Name calling doesn't mean anything. We're gonna keep doing what we're doing, and if you're gonna call us homophobic, transphobic, racist, go for it. It's gonna encourage us even more.
I love that attitude.
Yeah.
Claire, any other way that you guys have been harassed or that you've been harassed personally?
Yeah, I think that one of the main ones was, or one of the ones that stuck out to me more so. I remember back when this whole thing did come out, a bunch of the girls in our Turning Point chapter and girls who weren't in our Turning Point chapter, who just wanted to express their voice to be in opposition to the policy, wanted to make our voices known and heard on campus. And we were like, okay, no matter what we do, we're going to be accused of doing something like absolutely horrible. So let's do something extremely safe that we is the furthest thing from violent. So what we did was we took like hundreds and hundreds of sticky notes and put short phrases on these notes by saying things like protect biological women, and then keep SMICS chicks. And we're called like SMICS. Those are whatever. It's like a nickname we're called.
Yeah, SMCs, mix.
Yes, exactly. So short phrases like that. And we went in the middle of the night and put them up all around the school. And then we put on phrases on the sidewalks with chalk. Very harmless. It was not that big of a deal at all. Mm-hmm. And of course, they took it all down the next morning before like 6 a.m. And which we weren't surprised about. But I remember the next day, like hearing girls talking in class saying like, oh yeah, like that Turning Point chapter, they were vandalizing the school, writing like slurs and hate terms and saying that, transgender people need to go to hell. And I'm like, okay, first of all, calm down. We were putting Bible verses, literal Bible verses on these sticky notes. And then I also noticed that I went into one of my classroom buildings the next day, and they had literal administration members seated outside in the hallways, staring the girls in our chapter down. Like I swear they do recognize our faces at this point. And it was definitely a major intimidation factor. And they were trying to prevent us from putting up any more sticky notes. But it was just extremely concerning to see these full-grown adults act like children, because it's just like, okay, so are we supposed to just like stay silent and not express our concerns or what? Because also St. Mary's has like a policy that we can't protest on campus unless we get it approved, which kind of defeats the purpose of having a protest.
Yeah.
But obviously, if we were trying to have a protest, they definitely would have rejected that. So it's definitely very concerning, but there was a major intimidation factor on the administration's side for sure.
That's insane. Just the entire idea that it's not even just harassment coming, because I felt it, but I went to a public university, so it's a little bit different. You guys are going to a university that's claiming by name to have some level of a moral code that exceeds just a legal obligation. And yet they're still intimidating their students to push against that moral code. That's insane to me. But I want to talk, and it'll lead into that a little bit more. But just the idea, you say you're obviously pretty well informed on the the code of conduct for students, faculty, and what is expected of you at the university. Can you tell me a little bit, and just the audience a little bit more, about what it's like going to a women's college? What kind of rules do you guys have in place in terms of living in the dorms, living off campus? What's expected of you? I'm sure it's more than just what is expected of somebody at a public university.
Yeah, so we're not only are we a women's institution, we're a Catholic women's institution. Not only that, we're a private Catholic women's institution. So there's a lot of rules that are in place, obviously for our safety and for the mere fact that we're, a women's institution. So, for example, like we have strict rules as for when men have to be out of the dorms. So at a specific time during the week and on the weekends, there's a time set where everyone has to be gone. So everything on campus as for that and as for men is very strict, which is what makes this, the possibility of this policy funny, is because according to them, I can have my boyfriend identify as a woman and then he can, stay the night. That doesn't make sense.
For the night, just for the night.
Yeah. So, so there's that. But along with that, I mean, I guess as for what it is like to be at a women's institution, I mean, it was created to be a place of female empowerment. So I mean, that's what every class is focused on. A lot of classes, they integrate women's voices into it, and as part of our education program, we have to take certain classes that have women's voices as part of it. So we have to take several classes on women's history. Sometimes it's integrated in a writing class. But unfortunately, at St. Mary's, it also comes with the gendered women's studies possibility, because that's a major there. And also a lot of girls end up having to take a class under gender women's studies, which is funny because, again, at a women's school, this department is teaching real women that, that anyone can be a woman, which is very, obviously contradictory to everything that the school should be teaching us. Yeah. It should be empowering us and teaching us that, we're special. No one can be us, but here they are doing the exact opposite, which makes me wonder why the heck I'm, why did I come here if I'm not getting the women's institution I came for, if I'm not getting the Catholic institution I came for. So they love to contradict themselves on every single rule and every single policy somehow.
Absolutely. And when we talk about some of those policies and how do you guys think that the rest of the world, sorry, my mind, I have 10 questions that I'm thinking of right now. Just because this is so insane. We have a Catholic university, and as a Catholic, I am a Catholic myself, born and raised Irish Catholic. And so to see this happening and to see, are they still fighting for any kind of this woke ideology to be pushed? Or the administration, are there Legibutica groups that are trying to make it happen and somehow find a way to make it happen?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're gonna keep pressing for this policy during the time that Macy and I are still on campus. I definitely think
so you guys are the wall. You guys are the wall that's blocking it off.
No, I think so. And we do have a bunch of other girls in our chapter who have put their names and voices out there. So we definitely don't want to take full credit. It's definitely all the students that have been helping us. But when we're out of here and they have a new batch of students, I definitely think that they're going to try to reinstate this policy. I mean, we see this in all of our classes. I mean, a ton of my classes are, foundationally embedded with woke ideology, and it all comes from these professors. And I personally feel like they should have some sort of woke background check before they work at these colleges, because why am I sitting in math and learning about how it's okay to be a boy if you want to be a girl? How does that correlate? I don't know. But yeah, throughout the rest of the campus too, we see a ton of these policies, and we see rainbow flags, non-binary flags everywhere you go. And it's just really upsetting because that's not what I came here for in my school. What does that have to do with anything? What does my sexuality have to do with my education? It doesn't. And they have these centers like Sexuality and Gender Equity Club and the Feminist United Club, which is all, not Sexuality and Gender Equity, but Feminist United, I guess I could kind of whatever, let that one slide. But there are many, many left-leaning clubs on campus and centers that I'm just how does this correlate with the Catholic faith? by any means. It doesn't at all.
Absolutely. I want to talk about feminism a little bit more, being that it's Women's History Month, as well as it was just International Women's Day.
Mhm.
How do you guys feel about where feminism is now? I'm sure through some of you guys have had to take women's history courses, as you said, so you probably are pretty well informed as to the history of the feminist movement. Do you guys consider yourself feminists of any wave or even the current wave? What is the state of feminism today?
Yeah, so this is something Claire and I were just talking about the other day. I mean, it's kind of
Mhm.
funny. This has kind of turned us into feminists. We never thought either of us would ever be that way. I guess not feminist in today's terms, because today's terms, it teaches that women are not special, that anyone could be a woman. And it also very much devalues the purpose of life and family as well. So, I mean, we definitely align a lot more with, first traditional wave. I mean, we definitely believe in these very traditional American values that have brought us to the place that we are in this country today. But today's feminism and St. Mary's, along with that, is teaching students that women, anyone can be a woman, but also like women don't need men, and also like you don't need a family, and also it's okay to kill your child in your womb. There's so many things that feminism today is teaching women that's not okay at all, and I'm terrified to see our future, because if we have all these women who are growing up on these values that are so anti what has turned our country to where it is now. I'm scared to see mortality rates of infants rise. I feel like family again is being devalued, and I'm just really scared to see the future that we have, which is why I think that it's so important for us young people to advocate for these traditional values of family, of getting married, having kids, because those values unfortunately are starting to die because of not only just liberal ideology, but also these institutions pushing it as well.
Absolutely. And so building from that in feminism, a common question that gets asked all the time today, and many have a difficult time answering this one, and I don't really understand as to why, but I'll still seek an answer from you guys. What is a woman?
The Notre Dame newspaper actually asked me the same thing, and all I said was what Matt Walsh's wife, of course, said, which is an adult human female. And I firmly believe that there's no further explanation needed for that.
Absolutely.
That's
Building off that though, what does it mean to be a woman?
Yeah.
If that's something that they're trying to erase, and something that obviously, if you can't get past the question of what is a woman, well, now we've gotten past that. If we were to get past that with the left in some way, I would want to know, what does it mean? Like, what is the significance of that in today's day and age?
I mean, there's a huge significance. I mean, women are not like men at all. We are different for a specific reason. I mean, not only are we just, seeing this in our history of, the United States, but we're seeing this religiously as well. I mean, we're taught that, we are meant to be mothers. We are meant to be there for the family. We're there to provide. We have so many amazing talents that we can contribute. I mean, women were obviously a lot more caring. We can be more emotional, which is, I think, really important in today's society. There's so many things that make us so much different from men, and that's what makes us so much. I don't want to say more special, but that's what makes us special.
You can say it. No,
Okay, well,
there is a level, and I'm not gonna come out here and be like I'm a feminist or anything. Women
yeah,
are
yeah, yeah.
actually better than men, but no, there are so many qualities like without women, without recognizing the significance and specialness of the female gender, then we would not exist. We would cease to exist as a human race, as the Pope says, as
100%.
biology says. It makes sense. Claire, to you, what does it mean to be a woman?
I completely agree with what Macy said. And going back to what she was saying earlier, today's day of feminism is so severely toxic, and I'm actually terrified of it. And if anything, this whole experience has made me more of a feminist than I ever thought I would be. A traditional feminist, of course. I never thought I'd be standing up and fighting for female equality rights. But here we are. But yeah, I mean, biblically, it says in the Bible that Eve was literally sent because Adam needed her. You know what I mean? So it's just, from a religious viewpoint, I do feel like women are something a man could never be, vice versa. A man could, a woman can never be a man. And I think it's just really disappointing that these college leaders don't see the value in what a woman can be, and they want to bring in the men to these colleges and let them take over these potential roles and opportunities for us women.
Absolutely. And when it comes to being a traditional feminist, a trad feminist, as if you will, um, you guys have seemed to cultivate a level of community around that with your Turning Point chapter. I was hoping you could speak a little bit more to, because I talk about it all the time on my show, but I think it's interesting being at a women's college because I started a Turning Point chapter at Illinois State. It's a public school, co-ed, everything like that. What is the significance of Turning Point to you, your school, to the other girls that have joined? What impact has it had on your life?
I think I can take this, but because I think I brought this club onto St. Mary's campus because I knew that there weren't any very conservative clubs on campus. There were a lot being offered at Notre Dame, but it's just not the same. Going to an all-girls Catholic college, I want to be a part of something that involves like-minded women. And there is a pro-life club on campus, but with that, they are afraid of a lot of them are very afraid of being canceled by the school, so they won't get into politics,
Really?
even though being pro-life is very controversial. So I wanted to bring that chapter on campus because I knew what Turning Point stood for, of course, and I knew what I stood for. And Turning Point's values do reflect the values of the Bible and the Catholic Church's teaching. And I wanted to bring the conservative, like-minded voices together on campus and truly be empowered within our club and stand up against, these anti-Catholic values. And, that's the point of going to an all-women's Catholic college is to feel empowered and to feel like you can stand up and make your voice heard and not have to feel like you need to be censored or silent. So that was my original intention of having the club. And even though we are unrecognized, I feel like we've definitely accomplished that because within the chapter, we now have about 65 girls in the club, which is
Jeez, that's awesome.
at a small Catholic school with like
Mhm.
13 to 1,500 girls. I feel like that's fairly impressive, and it's just been very successful in my eyes.
Yeah, if I could
That's
add on to that,
yeah.
I Turning Point, their mission is so important to today's day and age because Turning Point is, I think, normalizing reality again because we're at a place in time where reality, everyone's just so out of touch with it. Like with this, people just think that anyone can be a woman. People just think that we're gonna get anywhere in life with anti-capitalist values or whatever. So I think Turning Point is so important to the mission of course, not just a women's college. Every academic institution, because I feel like we need to revive, these basic American values, and that's why I'm so glad I met Claire, and I'm so glad that we have this Turning Point chapter, whether it's official or not at school, because we can work to contribute to this revival of sanity again, because we've definitely lost touch with that as society today.
Not to mention Macy and I literally would not know each other if it wasn't for Turning
Yeah,
Point,
yeah,
because that's exactly how we met. So
yep.
I love that. That reminds me, my best friend Josh, who comes on my show every once in a while. He and I actually met through Turning Point as well. I was starting the chapter, and I brought him on. So it's a perfect reflection. I love seeing that because that's a very similar, not as much in the opposite end of being like all men's or anything. We had both men and women in our chapter, but being able to cultivate a friendship that you would have never had based on a shared set of values that are, like you said, controversial but necessary to stand up for. And I think it's important for everybody to see that in today's world, especially with such a bleak view. If you're only watching what the news decides to tell you.
Mhm.
I want to talk just about the transgender issue as a whole. We've talked a lot about it as it would affect your college, but as the Pope said, he sees it as detrimental to the future of humanity. What is your opinion on just the idea of transgenderism in general as it relates to those of under the age of 18, those that are over as full-on adults? We've seen Florida even take it on in terms of banning banning like drag shows and everything, and pretty much any mention of it to anyone under the age of 18. What do you guys think should be done about this issue at a national level?
Yeah, so I think that's in America, it's a beautiful nation because we have freedom. So I do think that, whether I disagree with it or not, people should be allowed to express themselves
Mhm.
how they want. I mean, because again, that's what makes America so great is we have, freedom of speech and freedom of expression. However, I'm still going to have my opinions on it. And I still think that it's a horrible ideology to, have in, modern society. Because, I mean, just like the Pope said, I mean, it's completely disregarding everything that makes men and women special separately and together even.
Yeah.
But it's also, it's normalizing this concept that there is more than one truth. And then that spreads to every other kind of ideology that we have. Because when people start believing that you can just, what you think is actually what is, then that's a very dangerous slope because then that slips down into, people thinking that, oh, I can be any race I want to be. And
Mhm.
people don't believe it, but I mean, we're starting to see it happen. We're starting to see all these really weird, ideologies come in, and in my opinion, just destroy everything that's made, like I've said, America is so great. I mean, America was
Yeah.
built on these amazing values. And every time we step further away from that and, more towards an extreme left ideology, like the transgender ideology, that's the more dangerous it becomes to live in today's society. Because, I mean, we're disregarding everything that makes men and women special. We're disregarding everything that should drive humanity forward, which is truth. It's truth, it's perseverance, it's hard work, it's capitalism. So it's just a slippery slope. And I think, although anyone should be able to express themselves how they want, I'm gonna have my opinions on it. I'm gonna, fight against it because I don't think DEI, any of this stuff is good for humanity.
Yeah. Claire, thoughts?
Yeah, I think what scares me the most within this whole issue is that children are now able and minors are now able to do these procedures that are completely life altering. And I think, like, on a smaller level, the least we can do is start providing these supports within the school system and saying, hey, oh, you feel like you're a boy, even though you were born a girl. I think that it's extremely crucial that we're getting these students help at a young age, because that's when their brain is developing. And I think it's terrifying that the suicide rates within the trans community are extremely high, and this is for a reason. And within the College Democrats of St. Mary's, they stand for obviously the trans issues, but they even mentioned that the suicides rates within the LGBTQ plus and trans community are so high because they're not getting the support that they need, which is completely misinterpreted. I think there's something to be said for these rates being extremely high, and these people are not getting the help that they need, because how are they supposed to know that they're
Yeah.
not thinking correctly if the people who are healthy and who are thinking right are telling them that it's okay that they're thinking the way that they are?
Yeah, definitely. I think anyone below the age of 18 should definitely not be getting any of these surgeries. I mean, it's life altering. You can't get a tattoo until you're 18. So why can you get your genitals cut off, before your age of consent? I mean, it's absolutely insane. I mean, it's a life altering decision. And like, thinking back to my 15-year-old self, if I made that decision, like, I'm not the same person I was back then. So, the fact that that's like a reality for some people is so
Mhm.
scary. But so, obviously below the age of 18, I mean, that stuff should not be encouraged. It should not be taught at schools. And it should not be affirmed. Like you said, I mean, it's delusion. It's a mental health crisis. Therapists need to challenge, not affirm. So, if I was a young child and I went, I went to my therapist and said, hey, I think I'm a man. My therapist shouldn't be like, oh, yeah, you're right. Like, they should say, that's
Why do
wrong.
you
This is
think that
right.
way?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, work
exactly.
through it. And
Exactly.
but that's what I'm saying. Like, society's lost touch with reality. So all of a sudden now it's become the norm to affirm things that are not true. And it's a scary slope. But I found this quote online. I forget where I saw this, but it says, dear trans community, don't tell me I have to accept you for who you are when you couldn't accept yourself for who you were. And I think that,
Yes.
like, that encompasses like the entire ideology in a very great way. And I think that's kind of my stance summarized in
You
one
both
sentence.
you both are absolutely right. And I even look at it, as you mentioned, the suicide rates, which absolutely are staggering and very, very sad to see. I even wonder, because we'll oftentimes hear from the left that, oh, well, there's always been trans people. They've just been closeted and not accepted by society. But then when there are attempts of trans suicide, they'll say, well, it's because they're not accepted. And I'm like, well, which is it? Because we didn't have the staggering suicide rate that we now do when we are affirming the gender care itself. So, but I digress a little bit. What I do want to say is that statistics 100% agree with you and myself as well, in the fact that those under the age of 18 should not be having this. And the majority of people agree with that. What another statistic that has really been kind of blowing up recently, especially within the Turning Point crowd, is that young men are trending conservative. I forgot the exact number, but it's the vast majority, upwards of 90% of men around the age of 18 are identifying as conservative. Within that same study, however, those women around the age of 18 were much more likely, around the same amount, to identify as liberal. What do you think is causing this divide? How do you see this going, and why are so many young women liberal, and how do we fix that?
I think what's causing high school men to be more conservative is because of the toxic femininity. Obviously, a man typically will feel his best when he is pushed into his more masculine energy, and I think that is exactly the opposite of what these high school liberal girls are doing to these men. They're obviously not making them feel truly masculine, and obviously men are like public enemy number ones across the nation. Everybody hates men nowadays. They don't want them to be strong, independent, and providers for the family. And all that they are is they're constantly shot down. And why would high school boys want to get on board with that when all that they're doing is making them feel horrible about themselves? And same thing with high school girls. They are obviously at a very vulnerable age and will believe a lot about what is told to them. And not saying that I still feel like I had, a pretty solid ground under my 2 feet, but when they're constantly being told that they're oppressed and, they need to, stand up and be an independent, strong woman, they don't need a female, they're being gaslit into thinking that they can do everything on their own without a man and that they should hate men and that's all that they need to know. So that's why I think personally.
What about you, Macy? Any thoughts on,
Yeah, I mean,
the split?
first thing I think about is, a lot of women hate to hear this, but I mean, men are less emotional, and in a lot of ways, that's a better thing. I mean, because we see trans women everywhere, because women are the only ones who are going to tolerate this kind of insanity. I mean, think about it. Hardly ever do we see trans men in, men's universities or men's colleges admitting women who think that they're men. I mean, you do the research. I mean, there's no men's colleges, universities that admit that because I mean, they're not going to tolerate that. So
Is
I
that a
think
thing? I do have to ask. I agree with most of what you're saying, but is it all men's university? I guess I've never looked into it. Is that actually a thing?
every single one I've researched into, none of them except trans men.
But there's actually like all men's universities. I've never actually heard of that being a thing.
There's men's colleges. There's one nearby in Indiana. So
Interesting.
but I mean that's an interesting thing to look at. I mean,
Yeah.
they're not going to allow that, and that's the same for young men everywhere. I mean, exactly what you're saying. I mean, they're going to trend more towards these less emotional stances, but things like gender ideology and everything that has made the feminist movement what it is today. It's very emotionally based because I mean it's based on the fact that like, oh, I am what I feel I am, and that's not true. And luckily we're we have men on this planet who are more factually based, who are less emotional, and they see that. So I think that's definitely to thank, and that's why I'm so grateful for my dad raising me to be like him, because I think that's why I can attribute my sanity and my grasp on reality is because I've learned lessons from my dad.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so how are you guys trying to fight this? Because you're conservative, you're trying to spread the message. What are ways in which you believe that at a larger scale, other than just what you're doing, the work you're doing is amazing, but other than just that, how do we help young women be honestly be happier and embrace their femininity and thus also embrace more conservative values?
Yeah, I think that starts with the family. I mean, obviously, as a 20-year-old, I can't do much about that right now, but I mean, I think it's really dependent on how kids are raised these days. Because as much as people like Claire and I can try to advocate or try to get our names out there. I mean, the most important lessons we learned are in the home and from a loving family. And, Claire and I were lucky to have grown up that way. So I think it's really important as a society to push for these family-based values in life, because I feel like I can attribute everything I've learned from growing up with amazing parents. So I think it's really, really important to normalize families again. And I mean, apart from that, I mean, the best we can do is every single person put in, their best foot forward. We need to normalize reality again. We need to not make it a normal thing for women to just accept people to walk all over them. Because I mean, I sound like, quite a feminist right now, but we just have to make sure as a society we all put our best foot forward. And I think especially as young Americans right now, I mean, we're shaping the future for ourselves and for our families. So I think it's really important for young voices like us, especially, to get very involved, because we are the future of America, and everything we do now is going to affect us in the future, and we're shaping exactly what that future is going to be right now.
Absolutely. Claire, any thoughts on how we reshape women and the kind of degradation of kind of the female gender?
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that Macy just said. I also just wanted to add that it's very important that we're having these uncomfortable conversations in the households within the family, because I know that I grew up in a household that, we didn't initially like start off talking about politics or these uncomfortable topics. But ever since COVID, we started, picking it up a little bit more, which I'm so grateful for, because that's the one thing that came out of COVID that was kind of positive, was that we started opening our eyes a bit and having these difficult conversations. Because especially at our college, I think a lot of the girls will give us dirty looks and say mean things to us, but they're not willing to, debate us or talk to us, have these civil dialogue, these civil discussions, because I think they're so uncomfortable and afraid of, not being able to defend themselves properly. But if we could all just, increase the dialogue that we have with each other and promote this discomfort, because being uncomfortable is really just going to benefit you in the long run. So I think that's really important.
Absolutely. And building off of one point that Macy had brought up is modeling the behavior as a parent in relationships, everything like that. And one thing on a happier note that I did notice when kind of scrolling through Instagram is that, Claire, you recently got engaged.
I did.
Okay, so congratulations first off. Very exciting. But you're young. You're like 21, I believe.
Yes, I am.
Okay, so that is not normal for nowadays. I believe if I'm remembering my statistics correctly, it's like 29, 30 is around the average age for women to get married right now. Maybe it's like 28 to 30 is around that age, is the average age for women to get married. So being 21, statistically, most of your friends are not engaged. Most people that you associate yourself with are not engaged or married, I'd assume. What is that like? How did you go through that journey and realize that was the necessary next step in your life? How did your fiance realize that?
Yeah, I had no idea that I was going to be getting married this young. I mean, we started dating about 2 years ago, and I never thought I would end up getting married super young, but I wasn't opposed to it. And I love making jokes because I'm truly following the Catholic conservative stereotype. But I think that, I follow a lot of conservative influencers and activists, and the number one thing that they say is, if you know, you know, which I have completely seen. I have never been more confident on a decision in my life. So what's, holding me back from going forward to this next stage of my life? And number two, they always say, the key to happiness is get married young and have lots and lots of kids, which I have been fortunate to have a lot of siblings in my household. And, but anyways, I just think that it's important that you really need to follow your gut on these decisions and not listen to what, society is saying. Because at St. Mary's also, I've been pretty fortunate because it is a stereotype to get married young there as well. They always say that at the Catholic girls' school, ring before spring, or ring by spring, which is exactly what happened to me. So girls don't think it's too weird, which I'm happy about.
That's
but
good.
Yeah, I think you really, with these things, you really need to just follow your gut on it. And if you know, you know.
That's amazing. I'm so happy to hear that. Not only are you guys modeling it, or not only are you modeling it with that, I'm sorry, Macy, I don't know if you're engaged. I didn't see anything
I'm
on
not.
your
I'm not.
Instagram. Okay. But it's, you guys seem to be modeling it in a lot of ways. Yes, you might be taking different life paths as individuals, whatever, but you guys are modeling what you're preaching, which is more than you can say about the majority of the left. Another way you guys are modeling that and making sure that your story gets told accurately and efficiently is through, you guys have recently started a podcast. Let me know, tell me how you guys came to, it's podcast 30, or it's what is it, something 38,
Cancel
right?
38.
Canceled 38.
Yep.
Okay. The reason I couldn't remember it that was there's got to be an inside story as to why that name came to be, and I'm sure I will never forget it once I hear that story. So how did you guys come to make this podcast? Where did you guys come up with that name? Everything under the sun with that.
Yeah, so I don't know how smart of the decision this was, but Cancel 38. We're going back and forth on names. I mean, back at the a while ago, whenever we were thinking about doing this, we had a lot of people telling us to do a podcast. So we were like, oh, fine, twist my arm. But we were thinking through names, and we were like, what would be like, what's personal that would also grab people's attention. And we knew we wanted to do something around canceling because I mean everyone loves to cancel us. What that means, I don't know. I mean the world is still spinning. I'm still alive. But we knew we wanted to go off the joke of being canceled. But it was we always hang out in Claire's room, and we film in Claire's room as well. And she's room number 38. So we call ourselves Cancel 38 because that's exactly what they're gonna want to do. They're gonna want to cancel the girls in 38, but we're gonna keep going and we're not gonna let them do that.
That's awesome. And like, I mean, assuming you guys, I would have no doubt that you guys would move into a larger studio at some point when you guys blow up, everything like that. It would be an amazing name to keep just as a homage to where you guys started. So you guys came about, so you had people telling you should start a podcast. Is that kind of what it was?
Yeah, we've definitely had a ton of like parents and students telling us that we should, do our own podcast because Macy and I like binge watch political everything. So we are, as Macy and I told you before this interview, we are certified yappers. So we could literally talk about all of this stuff for hours on end. So we were like, might as well just put a camera and some mics on it and, hopefully entertain a couple of people and hopefully inspire some students because canceling is such a big thing. Hopefully after we tell our story and get more comfortable with it, if we can inspire one student to really stand up and voice their opinions and their values, I think that, that's pretty successful.
Absolutely. And so where do you guys, so it started off, you guys have just a few shows. I just put the link in the comments too. So for anybody watching right now or in the future, make sure you go check out Cancel 38, subscribe to them on YouTube. I'm sure you guys are on, where else are you guys currently posting it for podcasting?
Yes, mainly YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you can get your podcasting episodes, and we're working on Apple as well. So we should be on every single platform here soon.
Perfect. And so right now you guys have a lot about like your scandal. You posted it in a 3-parter. So even more in depth than just talking with me about it. You guys should all go watch that. But what's the plan after that? Are you guys going to like kind of cover just average news or bring on different activists? Like what kind of content do you guys want to do?
Yeah, I mean, we're hoping to do what you're doing and what every other conservative influencer is doing. And again, trying to normalize reality again. We're hoping we'll talk politics. We'll keep telling our story here or on campus as well. But again, we really hope to just kind of bring like a humorous and a very casual nature to more conservative ideologies. Because again, we've lost that, and we really love the work that Charlie Kirk, even like Riley Gaines, Candace Owens. We love everything that they're doing, and we hope to be able to contribute to that as young Americans, especially because I mean, Kirk's 21, I'm 20. So they're gonna die one day, and I feel like it's up to every next generation to build their own future. So I guess it's kind of what we're trying to do is we're trying to advocate for our conservative ideologies.
I love that, and especially from the female perspective because it's so often, and I mean take me, for example. Young men are much more prone to be the ones to stand up and fight. And that's definitely important. And that's the one of the final things I want to talk about is not only what everybody can do. That'll probably be like the last thing, but I want to talk about from the female perspective. I mean, you guys are at an all women's college. You are obviously fighting for women. Women defend women. I love that. But men naturally are meant to be the protectors. As you mentioned earlier, men are happiest and most comfortable, and I'll agree with this, when they are pushed into their masculinity. A part of that is being the protector of women, the protector of children, the protector of those that are biologically, naturally weaker than them, as we notice with female sports and men in those. How can men help from your perspective in protecting women's spaces and everything that you guys are fighting for? How can men help?
I think that men can help, especially within our situation. We've seen a lot of the fathers come out and support their daughters in fighting this fight. And not only have they supported the daughters, but a lot of them have personally reached out to the school and reached out to the president. So I think that, using their voices and not giving in under the pressure that just because they're not women, they're not affected, not giving it into that standard and that stereotype is extremely important because, that is your daughter and obviously you want to protect her. So doing everything that you can to protect them and fight for their values and support them in the fight as well.
Absolutely. Macy, any thoughts on other things men can do?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I mean, the fathers are so important in this fight. I mean, both me and Claire's dads have been so hell-bent in this. It's been awesome. I love it. But we need young men to fight as well. I mean, if they don't fight for this, this is their future as well. So if they don't fight against this very toxic ideology, and they're not gonna have a family one day because all of the women in the world are gonna be so brainwashed and indoctrinated to believe that it's normal to think that anyone can be a woman. So I think that although of course this is our future as women, of course this is men's future as well. I mean, this is what's going to end up being the possible downfall of traditional family values that continue our nation and have built our nation as well. So I mean, this is not just a woman's fight, this is everyone's fight. And we need men to stand up as well, because I mean, like you said, I mean, without men, like the world doesn't have the masculinity and the power and the protection that we deserve and that we need.
We wouldn't exist. Absolutely. And so what can everybody do not only to help in this fight, but help you guys, help the world be more, not only just bring back reality, but bring the conservative values back, bring back capitalism as a popular ideology, restore just regular sanity? What do you think, like as just a broad idea, what can people do? Everybody. Men and women.
I think that starting at a small foundational level, I think that we need to stop being afraid of speaking up. As we've said this a million times, cancel culture is a huge thing now, and you need to acknowledge that cancel culture is literally just somebody's thought and perspective on you. So how does that affect you? It doesn't. I think that's the number one thing that should be prioritized, not being afraid to speak up, and also not being afraid to disagree with these big higher up leaders like these college administration members. So yeah, which is exactly what, Macy and I have been trying to do is, letting them know and voicing our opinions and concerns.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one thing that I want to build off of that as we're wrapping up here, because I do want to show everybody your web or your YouTube. So, and I did put the link in there. I want to make sure everybody can see it. This is where you go. I know you still got some things you're building out on that, but it's fresh. It's new. Everybody go check out Cancel 38 to support them. And the reason why I say that is because what Claire said is important, right? We all have to speak up. We all have to have our voices heard, but not everybody. And I've heard this so many times from people when I used to go table at Illinois State and from even others that I've talked to within the conservative movement is they say, I'm happy you're doing it because I never could. Do you guys ever hear that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm happy you were saying it because I never could. I'm too scared. I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to get an F in a class, anything like that. And so if you're somebody like that, you can go subscribe to their channel, obviously subscribe to mine, like the videos, comment, engage as much as you possibly can, because driving that engagement will drive it into feeds of people that might have never heard this ideology, might have never been exposed to Christianity, conservatism, Catholicism, to the fact that, hey, you don't have to live a life of misery. And so every way that you can push that is encouraged. Guys, any last things you'd like to say to the audience, to me, any questions, comments, concerns?
No, I mean, just thank you everyone for everything, you're doing. Thank you, Kevin, of course. I mean, like Claire said, this is a fight, not just of, us. This is everyone. Everyone needs to be hands on deck. And, I promise anyone who's listening, who's scared to speak out or stand up, I promise you, you're going to be fine. Claire and I have been, canceled a bajillion times. Again, I'm alive. Nothing has happened. So I promise you the fight might be hard, but the fight for truth and faith especially is so well worth it. And you're not going to regret getting involved. I mean, if you asked me a year ago, would we be where we're at now? I never would have thought that'd be here, but I'm so grateful I am. I mean, it's very rewarding. So I definitely, want everyone to resonate with that message, especially. So thank you, Kevin, especially for everything you're doing. And this is awesome.
Of course.
Yeah. Also, I would just want to say thank you so much, Kevin. Literally, I remember the first time I heard about you and your podcast. I remember thinking, wow, this is crazy. I could literally never do that. Like, good for him. But, here we are. But I appreciate you having us on the show, especially because we need to be doing things like this to shed light on the situation, because nobody's going to hear about it if we don't talk about it. So thank you.
Of course. And thank you guys, because I've been yelling from the rooftops about things like this since I was like 16. And all I've wanted to know is that more people are out there, and people, especially young women, because I can scream as much as I want about women's issues, but there's some people that'll just never take me seriously, no matter how much I identify as a woman when it's convenient for myself. But so I'm so thankful for you guys. You guys are the ones that are putting in the work. You guys are the ones that sought real change, and I'm so happy about it. Thank you guys. Everybody go support Macy and Claire, and don't forget to obviously subscribe to their channel, but subscribe to mine, like this video, comment what you think, share it with your friends, and until next time, God bless you, God bless America, and thank you for tuning in to Speechless.